Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of E-Heroes for those keeping count. This is episode 358. My next guest hasn't been with us since episode 197, so you got to go back and listen. But that was back July of 2022. And, you know,
Wow.
I've talked about AI a lot. I've had guests on here, and they can recite AI frontwards and backwards and tell you how it's going to help humanity. But my next guest will help you decode humanity so that you can fit in better, or maybe not fit in, depending on your perspective. So I want to welcome Brian Galke, and thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for bringing me. I didn't realize it was 2022. It's all such a blur from like when we all first met, and we keep in contact. We chat every once in a while on DMs. So wow, I didn't realize it was that long
Yeah,
ago.
and God rest his soul, but we came together through the power of Steve Sims.
Hmm.
For all those who are listening and maybe not aware, Steve died earlier in July of 2020. This is 2025.
Yeah.
And, my first experience with Steve was back in 2015. I actually interviewed him for another podcast that I was doing. And it was funny because he didn't know me. I didn't know
Hmm.
him. I saw somebody post something on Facebook and I thought, I think I'm going to reach out and just find out if I can interview him.
Hmm.
And I just sent him a message. Hey, can I interview you for this new podcast? And he said, sure. And so I interviewed him and I thought, man, this guy's intimidating, but he wasn't, and
Right.
he shared stories about Italy and all these other great things. And later that year, I was in Italy and I'm standing at the foot of David. And I'm thinking, how the hell did he pull off getting a couple to eat at the foot of David? And there's security
Yeah.
all around. And I'm like, good Lord, how did he do it? But, you know, and the thing is that Steve I think, had a vision that he saw in people
Hmm.
beyond, just them as an entrepreneur. He saw their power, and he told me, I said, right, and this was later. I guess it was 2 years later. I'm sitting with him having breakfast in Hollywood, and he's making fun
Hmm.
of all the celebrities going by. But he told me, he says, raise your prices, triple 'em, quadruple 'em
Yep.
if you have to. Make sure that what you're doing sticks and has value, and that always stuck with me. With you, he saw your powers, you know,
100%.
and he's helped you. And I'm like, wow, I look at you from the very beginning and to now, even interviewing you 3 years ago, you're changing the world. And
Thank you.
maybe people think, oh, just watching people, decoding their facial features and knowing, I can't say knowing if they're lying because there's a lot of people out there that do it well, but you
Right.
can tell, if they're in pain or if they're in joy or they're not really who they say they are, and you go out there and teach it. And that, to me, that's incredible.
I, we live in the day and age right now. We're so digitally disconnected because we don't check on our friends anymore. We check online. Oh, I
Mhm,
wonder what's going on in their world. It's rare that, like you and I were talking about, we DM. Most people don't even do that. They're just like, oh, I wonder what Bob's up to today. Let me go check their social media.
mhm.
That's not where people are. That's everybody's highlight reel, the best possible thing for them. That's not really where they're at. And you have to learn to reach out to people. Even before with what happened with Steve, I like to say, when in doubt, reach out. Somebody pops to your head, shoot them a text. If they respond, it's a bonus.
Yeah.
Because some people are busy, they just don't have time. But you never know if you're that person who reached out to somebody at the minute that they needed it the most. And because you're a random person, like you're not, it's not your neighbor,
Mhm.
they feel free to open up to you, in a way that they wouldn't have because they're like, well, I wonder why Rob texted me, and sometimes you just catch somebody at the exact right moment that you
Mhm.
can change somebody's life or you can save somebody's life. And, why more of us don't do it is because we get busy. Like, I'm just as bad as everybody else. I get on here and I doom scroll and I check out everybody's page, but I don't check in with them.
No, and the
And,
thing is, I was
yeah.
just on a conversation with somebody yesterday, and I told him it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I woke up. I don't know why, but I started
Hmm.
to doom scroll, and I saw their video.
Yeah.
They did a TikTok, and they were I guess pointing at a comedian. And although I had the volume off, just
Hmm.
watching them laugh at the comedian made me smile because I knew
Yeah.
prior to that they were in a lot of pain. So
Hmm.
watching them smile, and I had to call them up the next day, and tell them, and that brought joy to their world because I took notice. And
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that everybody should take notice, but I've been in this game for 30 years as an entrepreneur, in the trenches, and I know sometimes it's a lonely occupation. You know, people that work for a living, they don't understand what entrepreneurs go through. And so
Hmm.
I try to at least, every couple months reach out to people I haven't spoken to in a while and just say hi or throw a funny meme or something because you never know. And I didn't know I thought Steve was getting better.
So did I.
All of a sudden it just turned for worse and I pray for him and Henry all the time and it just it's difficult to watch friends fall.
It is. Ed Parco's doing a good. He's doing a campaign right now. It's at least going to be for 30 days. He doesn't know for how long. On tell people now. Don't wait for their funeral. Don't wait for their eulogy to let people know how they impacted you or what they mean to you.
Mhm,
He's got a good campaign that's going on that was inspired by what happened with Steve because Steve passed, and then all these people started posting how Steven changed their life. And there's stories that are exactly like what you just talked about, where he saw something in people they didn't see in themselves.
mhm,
And here's this biker looking guy, eye piercing, big goatee, all ugly as hell. And he'd love that I said that. I used to joke and say, he was a human Geico lizard because if he didn't have the British accent, nobody'd listen to him. But he just had that knack of looking at people and be able to just cut straight to the core and be like, you need to do this, you need to do that. You brought up several things. So for people who don't know the reference you were talking about, I also went to Florence last year and went and saw the statue of David. And in his book, Blue Fishing, he talks about what he orchestrated to make happen. And we don't want to give it away, but just go get the book. It's a fantastic book. I listened to it the week after he passed because I was like, I need more Steve time.
mhm,
Um, but I was on a podcast with Steve and I told him he needed to trim his upper lip. And he's like, I said, if you want to be more approachable, it's like, do you think I care? But I followed up with him. And then he said, hey, you want to be on my podcast? I'm like, sure. And after the podcast, he said, you want to come speak at my event? That was my very first official time to be brought in as a speaker. There was one other time I was on a stage, and that was Janine Driver, the body language expert, gave up 15 minutes of her talk to let me talk. But Steve's event in San Diego in 2021 was the first time I was brought in as a speaker to speak officially. And I didn't hire Steve as my coach at that point. I liked the guy. I went to, and then Greg Reed invited me to Secret Knock. But
mhm,
I watched how Steve interacted with people at a few speaking events, and it was months later that I hired him to be my speaking coach,
mhm.
because a lot of people peddle a lot of things that they aren't authentically that person. I know authentic's a bad word, but there's people who offer speaker training courses and they've never been paid to speak.
Right.
So I was very hesitant. So I went to these events and I watched how Steve interacted with people and the respect and how he set up and how he did things. And that's when I wanted to hire him as my speaker.
Mhm. Yeah, it's, but you've come a long way.
Hmm.
You just from that first speaking experience to now, I mean, you're commanding the stage, and I'm looking at a picture on your website, and there must be thousands of people in this convention.
Yeah, that was the Go High Level Summit that I spoke at last year. It was like 1,100 people.
Yeah.
And I'm going to one next week. I fly out next week to St. Louis. It's going to be another. It's going to be 1,100 people. And to your point, when I first started speaking, I had to drink out of bottles of water because if I had cups of water, people would see my hand shaking and the water sloshing.
Yeah. My first experience with speaking, and this kind of goes back to my fear in high school because you always were supposed to stand behind the podium,
Hmm.
and so I in 2015 or it was 2014, I was speaking at a realtor convention about my first book.
Yeah.
No podium, no nothing. I'm like, it's great. I can walk the room and I was entertaining. And that very night, then I flew to Vegas to speak the next day at a cleaning convention.
Okay.
And there's a podium on the stage.
Dang it. Yeah.
And I'm like, and I froze up. And I'm like up there trying to figure out because I had memorized everything.
Hmm.
And then my brain stopped working. I got over I'm like, "Screw it." And I reached in my paper and I said, "We're having
Yeah.
technical difficulties, just bear with me." And I just read my script,
Yeah.
and everybody
That's
stood
funny.
up and clapped because they thought I was faking it.
Growing up, like I live in Texas, and so Zig Ziglar was out here, right? And you'd have Zig, and he's all over the stage, and he's moving everywhere. And then on the opposite side of that, speaking of podiums, you had Jim Rohn, and Jim Rohn's advice was fantastic, but he would just sit at the podium and be like, "What you need to do," and he never left that podium. And so I had a hard time watching his videos. I could listen to his tapes because of great content. But he was so boring to watch because he would not leave the podium at all.
Yeah, and so after that, I said, "No more podiums." If you ever watched The Incredibles with
Hmm.
your little daughter, where the one person says, "No capes." For me, it's no
Hmm.
podiums. And
I
so
agree with you. It podiums are such a legacy thing, and it's so funny. I went to an event. Where was I? Oh, we were speaking to DWI attorneys at a conference. Well, they had a podium if they wanted to use it. Well, one lady wanted to use it, and she was so short, it was like up here. And so you'd think this day and age, like, get rid of the old wooden, make it something adjustable. Just like I have a stand-up desk, make a stand-up podium that can adjust. But no, there's that old school. They've got them out there because some people need their notes down and everything else. Just
yeah,
nah, not fun.
then and so I always just tell people, mic me up and I'll walk around.
Yeah.
It works out so much better because I'm free with my thoughts. I don't memorize anything anymore.
Hmm.
I gauge the audience, and sometimes before I even get up there, I'll ask a few people, kind of conversation, what it is they do, what's their frustrations, and then I'll just incorporate it into the talk when I get up there.
Yeah.
And people say, before I get up, what are you going to talk about? No idea, and it freaks them out
Yeah.
because they're like,
Well,
oh my
because
god, he's going
you've
to
been
go
doing it
rogue.
for so long. Yeah. Well, like Greg Reed, that we all know, he has what he calls songs in his head. So he doesn't have a speech. When he goes in and he meets the audience and everything else, he's like, okay, what playlist am I going to put together? And
Mhm.
when he gets there and he meets the audience and he talks to them all, he's like, I'm going to pick these 12 songs. And each song is a little story that he has because, he, like Steve, has so many amazing stories. But that's what he does. He doesn't memorize his whole speech. He just has stories based on the audience, which is great. I know somebody who I was talking in a different group, and they've got to talk like next week. And they're like, I've memorized all 30 minutes of it down to each word. And I find that to be dangerous
Yeah.
because then it's not about the audience.
No, and that used to be the old pattern. Have a speech that you repeat over and over and over again, and share the same. I've gone to
Yeah.
events where I went to an event in 1998, and I went to another event with the same speaker 15 years later. Same speech,
Hmm.
same speech. I'm like, good lord, mix it up, add something new.
Yes. Well, especially this day and age, the world is changing so fast. You have to stay relevant
Yeah.
with what's going on because that's what keeps people's attention. We were talking about doom scrolling earlier. If all your stuff is outdated, and I did this in a talk the other day. I said something. I said, well, when you're looking down at Zoom, it's like looking at the Brady Bunch. And I
Mm.
realized half the audience didn't know what the Brady Bunch was. So you're like, oh, okay, I am 50, but I didn't think I was that old. But you
My
have to, yeah,
my old joke when movies come out, people ask me, "Are you gonna go see it in the theater?" I said, "No, I'll wait till it comes out on beta." Nobody knows what beta is anymore.
nobody knows
So
what that is.
I'll say, "Well, I'll wait till it comes out on VHS." People don't know
Yeah.
what that is. I'm like, "Good lord, I'm old."
Oh, I was reading a book and it was talking about how a speaker alienated people, and that's because he said, "Well, when the stewardess came around, she didn't have what I wanted," and people are like, "What's a stewardess?" So that we have to be careful of using old language in current conversations.
So, and I love this, on your website, in the age of AI, decoding people is the ultimate human advantage. And I just came out with a book called AI Advantages, and it helps small business compete with the big guys when it comes to showing up and ranking on SEO, on GEO, which is generative engine optimization AI. And
Yes.
but you're doing something different. Yes, you still want to be able to show up in AI and SEO and Google, but you're bringing the human element, up front and in your face, and
Yeah.
you're helping decipher people's, I can't say emotions, but basically when you're reading someone's face, you kind of know.
Yeah, it's how do they take in and process information. It's learning how to present to the person instead of pitching your product.
Hmm.
And that's the big changes. We run into so many people. The problem is most companies moved from a conversational transaction to a cover your ass transaction, and meaning I'm going to send everything in text or email so that if there's anything that goes wrong, I can point to this email. Well,
Hmm.
that's great, but AI can do that.
Yeah.
And that's if you are only communicating with people over text or email. This week, ChatGPT just released, AI agents in
Mhm.
ChatGPT. Now, other places had my CRM, which is Go High Level, has had agents for a while,
Yeah.
you know, but ChatGPT for free
Yeah,
gives you
and
agents
I
now.
and I actually used it. I had a website that was coding. There was a coding error that I couldn't find, and
Yeah.
I gave the passwords to the AI agent, and it went in and
Uh
fixed
huh.
it.
Really?
And the thing is,
See?
had I spent time to fix it, it would have taken me hours, and I would have had to bill the customer hours.
Yeah.
Not only did it save me time and frustration, but I didn't even bill the customer because it only took 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
so yes, it's taking money out of my pocket, but the amount of time and frustration it saved me was worth it.
you're paying for speed.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And there's studies right now. If you go into any of the, and I like going to different ones. I go into Perplexity, I go into ChatGPT, and I'm like, all right, what amount of jobs are going to be replaced by 2030 with AI and automation?
Mhm.
And the estimates are up to 30% of jobs globally, meaning up to 800 million jobs will be eliminated by 2030. Now, that's jobs that are eliminated. What people aren't talking about is kids getting out of high school and college. Their corporations don't have those entry level, get your foot in the door jobs
No.
because AI is doing it. So if people don't learn people skills, they're going to be in for a world of hurt. A
And and
world of hurt.
and maybe AI will be able to do what you do in the future,
Hmm.
but it's not gonna do it the way a human would decipher another human. AI
Correct.
will be the biometrics and this and that, and it'll make a science out of it, which is sometimes not that great. You know, when we want to, look at somebody and we see their eyebrows raised or their, like you said,
Hmm.
the upper lip and the ears. There are certain things that we look at as humans to make us feel we can trust them. AI is not
Yes.
going to do that.
Well, and we don't even realize we've been taught and trained our entire life through books, artwork, comic books, movies, television, how to understand people based on their facial features. Television and movies is the best example. Why? Because all the characters have makeup on. So, like Spock, for example, in the most recent Star Trek, they give him straight eyebrows,
Hmm.
and it's nothing like what the actor actually looks like in real life. And so movies and television, all these sources are constantly telling us, oh, this facial feature means this. And what's crazy is it's been around since the Greeks, and it was actually taught in English universities until Henry VIII said, I don't like the idea that beggars and vagabonds can use this against their fellow man, and he had it yanked out.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kept alive because authors and artists had to take courses to learn character development. So
Mm-hmm.
all this required reading in school and everything else, we've been taught, we just haven't been formally pointed out that we know this information. And that goes back to what you talked about. We trust people with a certain face. We don't trust other people. We don't know why. Well, do they look like a demon, a devil, a witch?
Mm-hmm.
Do they have those facial features? So there's all these ways that we're influenced without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
one
and
of
the
the things,
Vulcans with the pointy ears, you instinctively think, wow, they're logical.
yes,
You know.
and that's because high ears and low eyebrows are people who understand things very fast. They also have a tendency to interrupt people. And so when you see that on people and you see high ears, we don't know why we know it, but we know it. And what's really crazy is like your audience after today, when you really listen to the English language, we talk about faces all the time. We say take one on the chin, keep a stiff upper lip, I'm all ears, I just can't get a read on this. I can't get a visual. We talk about facial features and how we take in and process information.
Mhm.
So like I was talking to somebody one day and they're like, I don't, it doesn't sound like a good idea to me. I can't hear where you're coming from. Well, by those two things, and it was a lady who had her ears covered, I already know she has larger ears. And what does that mean? She's auditory. But in her language, she told me, she said, I don't hear where you're coming from. It doesn't sound like a good idea. So when people tell you that, then you need to start speaking their language.
Mhm.
So then what did I do? I changed from I'm extremely visual and I want to show everybody things. I changed to using auditory words. Oh, okay, I hear what you're saying. Okay, so you learn to modify, and it's not manipulation, it's respect. So
Mhm.
when you go to another country, you can demand that they speak English, but that's not going to go that well for you. But if you try to speak their language, they try to speak yours. And people are the exact same way.
Yeah, and I've gone all over the world. Well, I haven't gone to the UK, but I've interviewed enough people that their culture is a little different. Yes, they speak
Hmm.
English, you know, but they have phrases that we don't have here, and it's like, what did you just say? And it's like,
Well, yeah. Look at Steve, hanging out with Steve, right? Steve had some words that were very offensive in the English language, like in American English, but over there it's just a phrase and a non offensive one, but it kind of doesn't make any sense when you say it's bloody brilliant. Why is bloody a good thing? you know?
yeah, and so you have to adapt to a culture very quickly to understand who they
Mhm.
are, and sometimes you can't do that just with words alone. You have to look at them. You have to
Yes,
look at what they're expressing in their face to know that, if they're saying something that, wow, that's offensive, but
right.
their facial feature is saying completely opposite, you know that they didn't really mean it that way.
Yeah, a lot of things are you have to be able to pick up and read intent. And that's the real challenge going back again to electronic media, text messages, DMs, email, is people are reading it in their head,
Mhm.
not what you said. So they can be having a bad day, and you could send me something like, "Hey Brian, hope you have a great day." And what I heard is, "Oh, hey Brian, why don't you just have a great day?" And that's the real challenge. So I encourage people all the time. I'm like, go back if you don't want to call people and you don't want to leave them a voice text, do a quick video because video is impossible to misunderstand.
Well,
They see you.
I
Yeah.
misunderstood something the other day, and yes, getting a no thank you usually
Hmm.
means, okay, no, go on. I'm just going to go. But sometimes after you send somebody a text and right away you get no thank you,
Uh-huh.
I thought they were screaming at me. And I'm like, why did
Right.
that piss you off? I'm like, it's just, and then I had to look at it a couple more times. I'm like, oh, okay. They're just being polite, but it
Hmm.
just came off. And, that's the thing about texting is that simple, innocuous words will just throw you aside, and it's like this shouldn't be this way.
Well, and that's what one of the things Steve taught was, right, is be impossible to misunderstand. And that is you have to get your message out there, but how do you do it is different for each individual person. But it is funny, like men and women communicate so differently. Like when women are like, God, you're so mean to your friends. I'm like, okay, go watch Gran Torino, go watch the barbershop scene where he's teaching the kid how to talk trash to another guy.
Hmm.
You know, because that's how guys are. And that was, going back to the Steve reference, which I realize we've done a lot. If Steve didn't pick on you, he didn't like you.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
I've
he
got a video
picked on me
actually.
a lot, and I'm like,
Oh
not
yeah.
even on this podcast, and you're mentioning me.
Oh, I've got I one time. So for people who don't know, I always wear a vest when I speak. And one time I accidentally left a vest. We were doing headshots, and they said, "Okay, bring a change of outfits." I'm looking for a video on purpose, um, and I accidentally left it there, and I get a video from Steve, and he's sitting there wearing it. So let me find this video real fast because you'll appreciate it. Come on. Oh, it's not on there. That's weird. If I get it, I'll play it back again. But basically, Christy resent me this video the other day, but it was Steve making fun of me, and he didn't put it on social media or anything. But oh, here it is. Okay.
And he's teaching people how to decode facial features.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's just who Steve was. Remember, I need to save this one right now so I can resend it to myself. Brian, I'm gonna post this one today. Now we're talking about it.
Now, I know that, you have the website subtleskills.com, but,
Hmm.
you're also speaking a lot
Yes.
and traveling a lot. Is there certain stages that you like over another?
It varies. So the larger the stage, the more people you get to impact, but you don't get to go deep.
Hmm.
So when you get to the smaller groups, like I spoke to a bunch of leadership, like CEOs, and there were 8 of them in the room. Then you get to spend individual time and ask each person, like, what makes sense, what doesn't. Plus, we can have them all volunteer, and then you get more of the group interaction. The larger the stage, you get to put a skill out to more people that you can help the masses. But you either get to go surface level in larger groups, or you get to go deep with smaller groups. So I love a combination of the two because I'm a product to the product.
Hmm.
I was an introvert on the help desk. I had to pick up books on body language, all this stuff. And then in 2010, I met the expert on facial decoding. And I thought I went to go prove the guy was a fraud. And he won me over, because he ruined my dinner plans. It's a longer story. I'll tell another time. But I thought, well, I still don't know if I believe it or not, but I would go out and I'd test it. And what I realized is being an introvert, we live in the prison of our own mind. But when I'm focused on you, I'm not thinking about me.
Hmm.
And that's what started to change things. And then people could actually tell, like, holy crap, Brian's actually focused on me and not just, surface level or distracted by their phone. I mean, it drives me nuts. I have an 8-year-old right now, and I'm trying to teach her, and I get on my phone. I'm just as guilty of being on my phone as anybody else. But when we go to restaurants and everybody at the restaurant's like this,
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, why did you guys even go to the restaurant together? And the story's a little bit older now, but one time we went to dinner with some friends that lived on the same street, and they said, okay, they had 2 kids. We said, oh, we'll do a group dinner. And we got there, and their kids, by the time we walked in, already had headphones on and tablets in front of them. And we didn't bring her tablet. We're like, well, we thought the kids were going to talk.
Yeah.
But there's so many parents, and I give my daughter a tablet. She loves it. Sometimes it saves my sanity. I'm not anti technology, but I'm anti technology. Like, she has to order her own food.
Yeah.
She has to eat and not wolf it down. If she wolfs down her food to get to the tablet, she doesn't get it.
Wow.
But it's I'm worried about future generations. You'll get a kick out of this one. Go and look at intelligent.com's December 2023 study. And what they did is they talked to 800 employers and said, what's the hardest part about hiring kids out of high school and college? 53% of them couldn't make eye contact during the job interview. You'll like this one. 21% refused to turn on their camera for a virtual interview.
Turn it back on.
Yeah. It's that, like, how do you apply for a job? you're not a faceless video reel, you're not a YouTube thing, but they refuse to turn on the camera. And the whole reason why is, if you go in your research this, and I spent some time doing it, this device gave them the illusion of perfection. And what I mean by that is, you and I growing up, we took a picture, it had to go be sent off. It might come back in a week, 2 weeks.
Oh,
It
and if
probably
you were
looked
my
like
mom, that
crap.
would take 9 years. She just
Exactly.
rolled up in the drawer.
Uh, yeah. Oh, you had the little, you'd find those little canisters that had the film in it. And then you'd have to look to see if a little is hanging out. Oh, that means it's a good one. If not, it's used. But so that you've got that, then they've grown up with text messaging and email, which is they have time to craft every message, every interaction
Mm-hmm.
they can control. And so what they say is anxiety in kids having a face-to-face communication is like speaking on a public stage,
Mm-hmm.
because they can't control it versus everything else they can. They've been taught, I don't like that picture. I can retake it a million times.
Mm-hmm.
I can, before I hit send on that text, I can craft it, recraft it, you name it. Same thing with email. They can order dinner, dates, delivery, all on a phone. They
Mm-hmm.
never have to talk to another person. You and I grew up, the phone rang. We didn't know who it was. I grew up pre-caller ID.
Mm-hmm.
So you just learn to adapt, but they know everything. Oh, am I going to take this call? Because I know who it is with
Oh,
caller
yeah, and
ID.
you can't even play Ding Dong Ditch anymore because everybody has call, or they have the Ring ID,
The Ring cameras.
the
Yeah.
Ring
You can't
cameras.
crank call.
You can't crank
Hey, is your
on.
refrigerator running? Oh, you better
Yeah,
go
you
catch it.
can't
I
do
mean,
any of
just
the good
dumb
stuff
things
we
we did.
used to do.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, oh. So yeah, all the world, and for me, I like to go to Disney World, and it's my
Right.
escape, but it's also a place where I learn new marketing techniques, consumer psychology, and
Oh, yeah.
here's the thing: is that Disney has adapted to the technology of the kids, and so now you can go on your
Yes.
app and look when a ride is how long a ride is. You can order your food. You can do everything via the app while you're there. So you go there
Yes.
and you look down, and everybody's walking like this, watching their phone, not enjoying the moment. And
Yeah.
Disney is a big proponent of FOMO, the fear of missing out. You know,
Mm-hmm.
because they wanna drive those people to get on those rides, to pay the extra, to do this, to do that, all from the comfort of their phone. Me, I
Yes.
mean, I've already put this in the book. I believe in JOMO. You're on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Joy of missing out. Maybe there's some things that you wanna do. Great. But maybe the line is 2 hours to get on something. Go do something else,
Yes.
you know? And put these away. Just
Yeah.
enjoy the moment. But
That's why I like European vacations. Like when we went to Italy last summer,
yeah.
is you got that 8 hour time difference. So what do? I put my phone on do not disturb mode, because I was there with kiddo and ex-wife, and nobody needed to reach us. So yes, when I'd get up and go to breakfast, I'd turn the phone on, but I didn't want it to ding all night long
Right.
when it's daytime in the US and we're trying to sleep.
Mhm.
So I spent a majority of my time on do not disturb mode. The only time I took it off of that is I would get up and I'd go early, and they would be sleeping in, I'd be up, I'd go on a walk around the town or whatever. I'd turn my phone on so they could reach me when they got up.
Mhm.
But I love, like, the new settings that I love on, and I have an iPhone. I don't know what you have, but
Yeah, I have an
I love do not
iPhone, and
disturb.
I downloaded the iOS 26, which
Uh,
comes with all this new stuff. So it
oh,
screens
really?
all the calls.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, this is awesome. But granted, I created a whole series of Rob versus books of me answering scammer calls, which then get in a
Oh,
book.
yeah.
I
I own
haven't
a few of
I ha
those.
I haven't taken a call in months.
All I know is the amount of banks that have a $75,000 credit limit just waiting for my approval, it's astounding, because I get 10 of those calls a day. I mean, there's just banks everywhere. They're just waiting to loan me money.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're
Oh, it
never gonna
drives
get
me
the card
nuts.
either.
That's the number one right now. As soon as if it's a number that I don't have stored, I'm like, here comes another one, 75,000, whatever, 50,000, but it's always the same thing. I'm wondering, like, who falls for that? Like, I got the ones of, like, your car warranty. Everybody's got a car, but who really thinks, like, wow, this bank just reached out of nowhere and they've got 75,000 for me. Who's going to call them? I don't
Yeah,
know.
but, there's gullible people, and AI has taken over those scam calls as well, and My dad got a call thinking it was my son calling, his
Hmm.
grandson, and he goes, "But it sounded just like him."
Yeah.
But it wasn't. And I've trained my parents now to understand that they don't have to answer the phone. They have these and they can screen
Right.
everything, and so we have to train the older generation to understand, you know, about AI scammers. But
Oh yeah.
this is why I love Zoom sometimes because we have this interaction. You can see me, I can
Yes.
see you.
Hmm.
You can tell, hey, Rob, he's just being sarcastic, blah blah blah. And but there's that sense of honesty. You know,
Yes.
you can't do that on a
Well,
voice call.
you can't. Let's look at go anywhere from preschool to prison. What's the worst form of punishment?
Just go to prison.
Yeah,
You've already
isolation.
said this person's guilty.
No, literally, what happens is when you get in trouble in preschool, you go to timeout.
Hmm.
What happens if you're the worst in prison? You go to solitary confinement. We know that isolation is a punishment.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter your age. If you get ostracized, so it goes back into our DNA. Genetically, everybody who says, "Oh, I don't care what people think," they're full of it because our genetics, down to it's called epigenetics, was if the tribe rejected us, we got kicked out of the tribe and we didn't survive. So our genes didn't get passed along. So we have built into us down to a DNA level a desire for people to like us because that meant, okay, we're part of the tribe, we're included. So if you look at any type of punishment, what's the worst way that you punish a kid in school? You put them in timeout. At home, you go to your room. Now, this day and age, everything's in their room, so it's not really punishment, but you take away their ability to access the rest of the world, take away their tablet, right? And they lose their mind or their phone.
Oh,
You
yeah,
go
now
prison.
we put old school technology in their rooms, an old
Yeah,
black and white TV, a
where they
radio.
have to turn the knobs. You get antennas, you get 3 channels, and that's it. And no remote. But yeah, you look at it, we know isolation is the worst punishment for everything, but yet we're moving as a society towards isolation. You were talking about Disney. In the movie Wall-E, how effing depressing is it that when they go into the future, it's everybody staring at a screen. They don't even talk to each other. They're all out of shape. They don't move. They don't do anything. And there was a big pivotal scene where the guy and the girl, like their fingers, their pinkies touch, and they're like, oh, there's another person here. That's to a degree where we're going.
Mhm.
There's been major things that have impacted how we interact with people. In like in the I can't remember what year air conditioning was built. Air conditioning was the first thing that modified how we interact with people. The reason why, once air conditioning was developed, they quit building big porches on the front of the house where people used to sit. So I used to own a historic home. It was built in 1915, and we had this beautiful wraparound porch. And there were 2 doors that came into the house. There was a door here and one off to the side. Friends and family came through the side door because you knew them. Strangers knocked on the front door.
Mhm.
But what happened is, as a society, when air conditioning was developed, well, where do most people go? Inside the house. And
What's
so,
funny is you go to a lot of cities where townhomes don't have or row homes don't have AC. Everybody's outside. But in the
yes,
country where I live, we all have air conditioning.
exactly. That was the first thing that changed how we communicate. Because now, with air conditioning, people leave their house, get in the garage, open the garage door, pull out, drive off, come home, pull into the garage, go back inside. There's no sitting on your front porch. People don't go for walks.
Mm-mm.
That's what really first changed things. Everybody thinks that this device is what really started it. No, there's so many different things. You know, looking at our parents and grandparents, like I don't, and this is going to go off in this whole other philosophy. Our version of modern love and everything else isn't what it was before. Because before you're like, hey, I'm going to marry someone so I can leave my parents' house.
Mhm.
Well, now you can do anything 24 hours a day. You want to go to the gym, you want to go to a bar, you want to go, you name it. You want to get on the internet, it doesn't matter. There's something to do 24 hours a day. Before, there was the radio went off at 9 o'clock at night, there was no television,
Yeah,
so
you got the
people
test pattern
talked.
on the TVs, and that didn't go away till like 6 o'clock in the morning. And
Exactly. Yes.
oh, I wonder if we could do an internet test pattern.
Hey, well, that was even, hey, I remember having AOL and it was like, oh, can I even get
Oh, I'm
online?
sorry for you.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember this or not. There was called the Seinfeld effect. And the Seinfeld effect was when Seinfeld was such a popular show back in the 80s, or I guess it would be 90s,
90s.
right? Yeah. That was a good time to get on AOL because people weren't on it. So there was actually, in terms of trying to get online, it was known as the Seinfeld effect. And that was if there was a popular TV show, and at the time it was Seinfeld, that was a good time to get on AOL before other people did.
Mhm.
And what people don't realize is when you got online, you then couldn't get phone calls.
Yeah.
So you chose, am I going to get online for what limited there was? But that meant you couldn't talk to people because it was pre cell phone,
Yeah.
right? And once you tied up that line, you couldn't do anything else. So
Oh, I
our
remember.
communication's just been changing.
I remember when one of the early, it was the prequel Star Wars came out. I wanted to download a trailer, a
Oh
3
no.
trailer, and all I had was AOL.
Yeah.
It's just like 3-hour download. And
Uh huh.
instead of me going out and doing something, anything, I sat there and waited. I'm like, why am I doing this?
Because
And then
back then there wasn't that much else to do.
I get this download and I start watching. I'm like, I waited hours for this. It was like, and then it was funny. It's ironic because Disney buys Star Wars, and it's like, wow, I just spent 3 hours in line for a ride that lasts about the same time as that trailer.
Oh yeah.
Stupid.
It, you're talking about going to Disney World, man. If you don't stay on property and you don't get the what like it's
Early
not fast
hours,
pass
the early,
anymore.
yeah.
Yeah, like we're
Yeah,
talking about.
now they're charging for all this extra stuff, and it's like I stayed on property a couple times, but I usually stay off property because it saves me thousands of bucks that I can
Right.
use other places. But you know, they encourage you to stay in the bubble, and I understand that. Everything that we do as an entrepreneur needs to create a bubble, needs to
Right.
create, and Steve was very good at that. You know,
Hmm.
but you create this bubble where you bring people in and they stay. Doesn't matter how much you do wrong, they
Hmm.
stay. They love what you do. They want to be part of it, and that's your clan. And you learn to adapt. You learn to make it bigger. But once that person or that bubble breaks, it's
Hmm.
very hard for the next person in line, to work it.
Oh,
And
100%. Well, look at you and I are a good example. We met in 2021. I still talk to a majority of the people that were at that very first speakeasy in San Diego my first speakeasy.
right.
I still, I text Mohawk Matt every once in a while. I
Oh
do a
yeah.
podcast with Ed. I talk to you every once in a while. I hit up Courtney in Vegas, Martha, all these people that I met. And that's a good sign of if somebody does a good job of curating their group,
Hmm.
then they don't have to be involved for you to still talk. But
Right.
you don't form new relationships to your point.
Hmm. Yeah. So I know people can find you at subtleskills.com. It's SUBTLE
Right. Nobody can
skills.com.
spell that right.
Yeah.
So for people who can't and they want to learn more, if you want to get the cheat sheet, here, I was amazed this one was available. Getthecheatsheet.com.
Getthecheatsheet.com. Wow.
Yeah. It was available. And I'm like, hey, you want a copy of the cheat sheet? Here's where you go.
It's like, yeah, go to Anspach Media. And they're like, how you spell that? Screw
Oh,
you.
yeah.
If you can't
Yeah.
spell it, don't come.
Well, so I thought when I bought Subtle Skills, I'm like, I am a freaking genius. And then I realized nobody can spell subtle. And so what do I have to buy? All the different ways of misspelling it. And my last name, like yours, like I'm Brian Galke. Nobody knows how to spell Galke. They put a Y on it. If most people call me Brian Galke, thanks to Steve Sims, so they think there's a Gaul, and it's not. So I bought all these like decodetheface.com, getthecheatsheet.com because you just got to tell people what they can spell.
Right. But then the problem is, and I've done this too. I've actually got rid of a lot of URLs I didn't want anymore, only because GoDaddy was making more money on them than it's like, oh, you and one of my clients has 900 URLs. So every time he
Wow.
wants to build a new website or redirect something, I got to go through his whole thing. And I'm like, dude, it's like 3 hours later, I'm finally getting to the URL that you want me to work on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I've got some. I bought in, let's see, in 2002, I bought punishmyliver.com. And the whole reason I bought it was I was at a bar and I saw a sign that said that the liver is evil and it must be punished. And my goal back then was I bought it thinking I'll go to local bars and find out when their happy hour specials are and just have it, so people know where to go. And I never did anything with it, but it always makes me laugh when that one renews every year because I'm like, you know what? I'm still going to hold on to it.
$20 later.
Yep. Oh, I got one the other day. It was like 200 $220 of renewing URLs. And I forgot I even had some of them. It was like teaching our teens about finance. And I'm like, I don't even use that. So I need to go to GoDaddy and do a purging
Yeah.
also.
Yeah. And it's not just that it's going to save you money, but it saves you hassle because now you don't have to remember all this crap.
Uh
It's
huh.
just building up, and it's just, what I call it. It's your GoDaddy attic full of stuff that you're
Yes.
never going to use again. So,
It's exactly it. And ones I've held on to for who knows why. And I just at the time when I was in corporate America, I was making really good money. I'm like, who cares when it renews? Then you become an entrepreneur and you start actually looking at where your money goes in and out. And you're like, why did I buy that one? Why did I let it renew?
yeah.
So
So for everybody listening, still go to getthecheatsheet.com and hire Brian to speak at your next event because, like we said, in the age of AI, it's all about human decoding. And so,
hmm
and here's the thing, you might think it's a parlor trick, but when you're dealing with face to face interaction with somebody and they get you, or you can get them, the chances of you making money increase exponentially. So get with Brian. So with that, I bid everyone adios and we'll see you on the next episode.
thanks everybody. Thanks, Rob.